Okay, Tobe, so looking here, over here on the left-hand side, this is a recent online lesson that you had. We were kind of talking about this earlier on the way here today to shoot a bunch of videos, and we talk about how much of a common error this is for a lot of players, right? So let's talk through these two. We've got the professional over here on the right-hand side who does a really good demonstration in regards to what this amateur golfer is doing on the left here. Yep. Let's talk about the effect of the pelvis, right? So talk me through the way that you would analyze this as we see it as such.
Yeah, so just for the technical aspect of it here with his golf swing. So I draw a line up the lead side of each one's pelvis there. So if you go the recreational golfer there, or the amateur golfer alongside the swing model. Mm-hmm. And what we're looking to try and see here, right, which we've already kind of looked at previously, right, is when we take them to the top of the backswing, we'll see the effect it has on their tilt of their spine.
Yeah, huge.
Now this causes an abundance of issues, as in strike, flight, and everything. For me, what's certainly important, what we'll see here on the right-hand side with Mr. Robert Rock, is how his upper hub has moved a little bit away from the lead hip there, and that's incredibly important for good ball striking amongst all golfers.
Yeah, for sure. So even if we were kind of, I would say, just to really distinguish the difference, if we draw this up through the center line of the stance here, yep, straight in the address position, we can see the effect of where the amateur golfer would be over here on the left-hand side. We see this all the time with online coaching, right? We can see the upper body stacked forward. It really doesn't look like you would see with the traditional professional setup that we see Robert demonstrating so well over there on the right-hand side. Yep. And then moving from that position, as this player then gets to the top, we can really see that this lower body, this pelvis shifts away from the target. Yep. Versus Robert over here on the right-hand side, you can see, looks like a much more of a centered turn and considerably more lower body in front of the original line that we drew. And you can see the head, it's pretty much stayed within its boundaries there.
Yeah, really great. And we want to make sure the backswing is giving us every chance for good ball striking, right? It's part of the loading phase, it's part of us getting ready to make nice contact with the ball. And if you're unstable like this player's on the left-hand side here, it's only one way for him to go there. Oh, and it's not going to look nice.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So now, this online lesson specifically for you, what was his ball flight issues? What was his contact issues? Because we're not just making these changes for the sake of it, right? Yep. You can try and work on your technique all day, every day, but it's got to actually convert into some sort of outcome that is playable to shoot lower scores. Yeah. So what was your conversation with this student here? And then why did you begin to make this change?
Yeah, so basically every student lesson starts with goals, right? So everyone comes to you based on they want to lower their score, right? And then we break it down there. Is this a ball flight issue, a strike issue? What is this? What even component of the golf game is it? For him there, it was clearly his striking. His greens and regulation was incredibly down. Strike was not consistent, and he was hitting it very heavy a lot of the time, finding himself falling on the back foot, as his friends would always tell him. And he's come to me for some answers. And the interesting thing about this lesson when it originally started was that he wasn't aware of what was going on. You know, his concept of what was actually happening, you know, versus what was happening was completely far away from each other.
Yeah, we see that so often, and not specific to this issue, but nearly every swing issue, because a lot of players, they have this idea of what they think a professional should do, or their buddies have told them certain information. A lot of misconceptions around the backswing, loading up the trail foot, and that has a huge influence on the way that the pelvis moves, right? Yeah. So let's talk about then what you did. Once we went through the analysis here, we've identified sort of the issue that was causing the majority of the inconsistencies and the frustrations that he was seeing. What did you work through with this student to rectify this problem?
So basically, what I like to do with all my students, right, is to really, I explain to them in the initial analysis the why things are happening. So I call it the why, that's how I label it, right? And it's not my role to break down their whole golf swing completely, but it's my job to show them the underlying issues, or what I call the major swing faults of what's causing it to happen. So once I explain that to them in a very simple format without trying to confuse them and show them how it's affecting their ball flight, I then get in front of the camera and demonstrate to them what I call the how, and how we're going to make those changes and what's needed, what's necessary with the training. So with this gentleman here, Brian, I spoke to him about, I like to break down the arm swing and the club, and then the pivot. So use two separate things. I think the pivot has a really big influence on what the club is doing, or what the arms are doing in the golf swing. So for us there, we could clearly see that we need to do some pivot work. Okay. So for me, what we did was, I want to take the club and the arms out of it. He was very up and down, so very straight this way, right? So that was already leading his pelvis to be more underneath him towards his trail side. Then what would happen from here is that his top of the backswing would go like that. Yeah. Okay. You'd see that trail hip bump this way. And, you know, for the viewer watching, right, what they'll see here is I've got to react from here into the golf ball. So if I've done that, there's a very good chance that I'm only limited to now going this way through the ball.
Just so we can give a real good illustration of this for the players at home and they can see from this face-on view, right? Let's say we're setting up into a pretty functional position. We're going to use this gold reference line down on the ground for about the center line of my body, okay? Let's keep it nice and simple. Now, we were seeing this player with the pelvis shifting away, the upper body tilting forward, and very much in this position. Okay, so let's talk about some other effects that you were seeing from this player and then what would happen as a result of from the top of the swing coming down into impact.
Yeah, so two major issues that this is going to cause, right, we can explain and show visually, is that as this hip's gone this way here, you're not going to get any hand depth.
No.
Right, so you're going to be very, very steep with your hand depth there. And I'm very big on where you're going to be reacting from that position. And that player is left with no choice except to go back the other way. So that would look like this is going to go this way, that way there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not, people will react differently with their arms in that position. That's not, I guess, a blanket position what can happen from there, but that's the way the body's going to move, and that's how they're going to react into the golf ball. And then when they do that, show us that again. Great, so then now show us the reaction in towards the golf ball where you're rocking backwards. What that does is it brings a low point down here.
Oh yeah, big time.
Right, and then if you were just to go to your follow through position from there, and you'll see a lot of time that all the weight is kept on the trail foot. Yeah, great. So then the recreational golfer and all their buddies, what they'll say is that you're on your back foot, that's the issue. And then from then, that student is then going to try and move forward, and then they'll completely miss the ball.
Yeah. And we see with the golf swing such a domino follow-on effect, right? How you set up, how you take the golf club away is really these issues that we see at impact that your buddies love to tell you on the range and on the golf course. You're just identifying the effects and not the cause.
100%.
So if I was this player and I'm all the way back here, my low point's behind, I'm grounding out my path and my face is all over the shop and I just simply try and get forward from there, well, it's a bit of a lucky dip and it's kind of just masking a bunch of errors without ever really fixing the problem.
Basically what we did, and as I was speaking about previously there, is that we took the arms out of it. And we really wanted to train the body. And a lot of it was at home stuff. We did a lot of at home training without hitting a golf ball to really get him to feel, and I want him to be conscious and stay in touch with it. So we simply just put the club across the shoulders this way here. We placed a chair just down the outside there.
Okay. So let's say I'm using this as a reference of the chair here.
Yeah, so that chair there offers brilliant feedback visually from the camera, as well as feel, and you can measure it as well. So when we had him there trying to keep that lead side against them more, and then move the upper hub in this direction that way there. So when I mean upper hub, I mean from the belt line this way. Now, that seems obvious, right? But even to break the pivot down into two sections there, because he was used to this going this way and that going that way. So not only is the lower body had to be more stationed there, you know, he had to actually train to get this to go behind the golf ball. So a simple one that I will also do, right, with that club across the chest this way here, is I put the alignment aid just on the inside of the right foot there, so from visually looking there, okay? And then when I take my backswing, I want to see that alignment aid essentially be covered there by my shaft. And so you'll be very surprised at that. Training that reaction there requires you to stay very conscious and much easier done without holding a golf club, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So really with this player, his pelvis was swaying away, his upper body was leaning too far towards the target. You gave him a dry drill at home to work on. And we talk about the importance of feedback all the time, making sure you're video recording, making sure you're looking at yourself in the mirror to make sure your feel is matching up with your reel. But like we were talking about, a lot of players then can do that. Very simply in front of the mirror, they go, I got it, coach, I got it. Then they go out to the golf course, they get one of their buddies to film it, they go straight back to their old habit, right?
100%.
So let's talk about exaggeration. And this player had some great success after you told him what you're about to tell us right now, right? So what was the feel that you gave him when he was on course to really ingrain this to ensure that he wasn't moving that lower body too far off the ball?
Yeah, so we had a couple of situations, and one of them was creating a rehearsal and a pre-shot rehearsal which would move his intentions in the right way.
Love that.
Yeah, so we're staying loose and we're getting ready to move in that direction there. So a simple feel to take to the golf course, right, just with the backswing loading, is just moving that lead shoulder behind the golf ball. You know, so moving the lead shoulder behind the golf ball, but also at the same time feeling that we're moving and pushing against that right foot that way there. So pushing against the right foot there limits the pelvis wanting to jump over in a funky town, and that was allowing the lead shoulder to move that way there.
Yeah, I think what we'll do, right, we'll demonstrate this on camera, So you were getting them when they were out there to feel like they were pushing against this trail foot, which as you can see, the effect is actually shifting my pelvis this way. Now, I love pressure stuff, right? Because it has a huge effect on the mass of the body. And that is an awareness cue that a lot of players don't actually utilize that could help them a lot, right? So I'm pushing against that trail foot, and you said you're actually getting the player to feel like their upper body is shifting off. Now, if you're a player who has never felt that, there's a good chance that as he's gone back, because he hasn't turned enough and he's tilted too much, he's going to be on his toes, right? So he's probably starting to feel a whole slew of benefits of actually shifting into the trail heel, allowing this rotation. And we can see that even if I just focus on those two cues, which you've told us, pushing down into that foot, so I feel like my pelvis is actually moving away from that pressure as I feel like my upper body is moving off. Well, that is the opposite pattern to that pivot where we see the pelvis go away and the upper body go forward.
Yeah, spot on. That's exactly right. And you know, pressures is a really big thing. So he may have been under the illusion of a concept early on that he wanted to move his weight. You know, so by initially using that pressure as a pushing there, and what it also retrains him to do is once someone is going this way, they've got to learn how to react to come back into the golf ball again. So that's a separate thing that you want to train, I guess, after that you want to teach the student around this here. You know, that's what we want to get, ideally. But I'm also going to tell you what that's going to happen to the ball flight because the way that you are still kind of reacting to the golf ball. So then you got to retrain on how to move into that position as well, moving forward. But you've got to give yourself the best chance first to get into that backswing to be in the right spot.
Love it. Okay, mate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a rehearsal exaggeration of that so the guys at home can see what it looks like. And then I'm going to hit a couple with that focus and feel. Okay? All right. So talk me through this. So I'm the player that pelvis goes away, upper body goes forward. I'm going to feel that I'm really pushing down into that lead heel, the upper body's moving away. Now it's funny, I feel like I'm going to hit way behind, but I'm going to trust you as my coach, right? Heel's going in, upper body's going away, getting the exaggeration. What you said, pre-swing rehearsal is so important. Get that feeling of exaggeration because if you've been doing something wildly different, it is going to take a period of time to ingrain, right? So I feel that pressure's shifting down into the heel, upper body's moving away. Let's see how we go.